This story is called The Goatman. Okay, so, this is a story by a user named Anansi. I don't know much about the person who wrote this story, but it's on the creepypasta wiki, and it was originally written in 2012 on 4chan. I don't think I can track down the original creator, so Anansi is the person who wrote this story. You might have heard it before. I think a couple of people have read it out loud several times. Alright. So, I'm going to start the story. We'll pause that. Okay. For a couple of, I need to change this sound effect to looping. Change that sound effect to looping. You don't know if you know it? Ooh, exciting. Okay, what's this one? Loop. Okay. I just have to make sure all my sound effects are in order, that I've got them all ready. It's tricky because the way that I have this set up is effectively just a bunch of sources in OBS that I turn on and off to use as a soundboard. So I don't know if this is like a good way to do it. I don't think it's a bad way to do it, but it is a little tricky. So bear with me if you hear some weird sound effects. Okay. Here's my story. Be 16, be black, and have a family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. Uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put out in the woods for hunting or camping. Down south cousins suggest we go out there to camp. Know I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the fuck out of me. Collect food, kill a pig and some chickens, and bring necessities to camp out for a few days. Get to the camp and notice something is weird. Has this weird electric smell, like right before a storm, like ozone. We think nothing of it, go to unpack, go to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says hello and asks what we're doing this far back in the woods. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and said, oh, I already said that, I'm sorry. Tell him about my uncle, who he knows, and say we're camping out. He tells us we need to be real careful out here and stick together because there's a big animal in the woods. His son, who is my age, asks if he can stay and hang out with us. He says okay. I'm going to stop green texting because the format is fairly long and this is harder to write in. And I'm very glad that this individual has stopped green texting. So we end up playing football. Dicking around with me, there's a white kid, Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. In total, there are 5 girls and 6 boys. We were all around 15 to 17, and we ended up just dicking the day away. Eventually, we head back to the camp and pull out some stuff for our campfire, even though the trailers both had kitchenettes. Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's. He wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come hang out with us. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's going to get dark soon. One of the girls also wants to tag along. It's about 7, and it's starting to get pretty dark. They grab flashlights and take the trail toward Tan's property. The rest of us chill. We make s'mores, drink, and kiss on the girls. About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's the smell of ozone again. You could notice it over the scent of the fire we had started. This really nasty, coppery smell, like right after you've had a nosebleed. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was that metallic back of your throat smell. We immediately think it's some kind of electrical malfunction or someone left a hot plate on or some shit. We search the trailers, and nothing's on, but we can all smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking it down the path towards us. Rooster, Tan, and the girl all come running into the clearing out of breath, and they don't even break stride. They all run right into the trailer, right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there and into the trailer. They end up calming down. Even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower, so my other cousins say fuck it and are about to go outside to get the generator out of a shed between the trailers. Tanner goes, fuck no, lock the front door. Ain't nobody else going outside. He's been crying too. His eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house. His father said sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure they were careful on the way back, and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of their pigs had been ripped up and half-eaten. They assumed it was just some big cats or coyotes, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. Tanner went upstairs, packed his stuff, and told his dad they'd be okay without the rifle, because coyotes avoid people. Then they started walking back to where we were camping. Rooster finally stops crying and shaking. The girl already had, but now she's just staring out of the window with a dumb look on her face. He says they'd gotten halfway into the woods toward the camp when they'd started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure at first what the fuck it was. The girl says that she heard something in the bushes right off the trail. They all beamed their flashlights over there, and there was someone standing in the woods in a little hollow. Rooster said they shouted at him and told him he was scaring the fuck out of them, and what a dick he was. That's when he realized that the guy was facing away from him. They keep walking, and they start smelling the nasty coppery ozone smell. They say that they took off into the forest on the opposite side, and there's a dude standing there too, backwards, slightly closer to the path. So they start power walking, and Tan keeps going, I should have taken the fucking rifle. And they're telling the story. As they're telling the story, the smell is super strong still, even in the cabin. They say that after they started walking faster, a kind of low gibbering had began coming from both sides of the woods. As they booked it back to the trailer, the girl said she flashed her light out to the side of them and saw something jerking itself through the woods. The gibbering got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from our campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them onto the track. Then they just flat out ran as hard as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods, and we're assuming at this point it's some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin Junior starts going on about how he went to school with a native kid who was telling him about the Goatman or some shit. We promptly tell him to shut the fuck up, because we don't need any spooky talk right now. But he just keeps going on and on about how it's the fucking Goatman, how we're in his woods and blah blah blah. Now, at the time, I had never heard of this Goatman or anything like that, but then a couple of years ago, years before I graduated from college, I had a native kid for a roommate, and I ended up asking him about it. And to sum it up, it's basically a fucking man with the head of a goat, and he can shapeshift and get among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be kind of like the, I don't know what the term is, I don't think I can say this, but it's like a skinwalker. It's bad mojo to even talk about it, and worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16, so my cousin is going, the Goatman's gonna come in and fucking get us. The girls are all terrified, and my cousins and I are all trying to figure out if it's just hillbillies or an animal. All of a sudden, the smell just goes away. To this day, I haven't ever experienced anything like it. Obviously, smells usually fade away or lessen, but it literally was just there 1 second and not the next. So, it's after an hour, making it around 9 or 10 p.m. We've stopped shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some assholes trying to fuck with us, so we don't go back home, because we think if we do, they'll chase us through the woods or some crazy shit. Nothing else weird happens that night. We stay another night, and for the main part of that night, nothing happens. But at about 1 in the morning, we're outside, we're getting drunk and telling ghost stories. As someone is finishing some too spooky story, I don't remember what about, the smell comes back. It's so fucking strong that one of the girls literally starts vomiting. I stand up, and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say we should get inside and that something isn't right. We should have just fucking left. We all go inside, and we're all standing around. My cousin keeps going on about how it's the Goatman. My other cousin, Rooster, has to try and get him to shut the fuck up. All the while, I'm feeling something is wrong, and I can't figure out what the fuck it is. We end up sitting in there for a while. The smell is just as strong, and we're terrified and all huddled in this camper. We end up cooking brats for everyone because no one wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats. We have a total of 3 packs. I grill them up on the stove and get everybody a hot dog, then get mine. After a while, one of my cousins goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts grumbling about how I got 2 brats and everybody else only got 1, and I look at him like he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were only 12 brats, and if he wanted more, he should just open up a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl who had been out with Rooster and Tan just starts screaming, "Oh Jesus, oh Lord, get it out!" She's crying and shivering, and then it dawns on me. It dawns on the cousin standing up, what the fuck is wrong? Me and him both glance around the room, and I feel my heart fucking sink. I run out of the cabin and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer as everyone books it out. One of my cousins asks me what's wrong. I start counting us. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verifies. There had been 12 people in the cabin, but being that everyone didn't know each other very well, nobody had known the whole fucking time that there was an extra person. And I realized earlier that I had kind of noticed something was off. You know how when you're just dicking around having a good time, that you don't sweat the small stuff, and you don't always keep track of certain things? I'm dead sure that someone else had been in the trailer with us, and that they had been in there for at least a fucking day, eating with us. What makes it worse is that I couldn't figure out who it was, because I don't think anyone actually interacted with the other person. The girl kept praying to Jesus, and we're all sitting outside. Eventually, we get big-ass sticks and go in the cabin, but there's nobody there. We count again, and there's 11 people. We go back into the trailer and lock the door. Sorry, I lost my place. We explain what the fuck happened. The girl says that she realized too, and when she was about to say something, the person sitting next to her had grabbed her leg hard, leaned over toward her, and said something she couldn't understand. So we are pretty much scared as fuck as we huddle together, and I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up, and half of the people are asleep, and the other half are packing our shit up. We all want to walk back home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think that we're just fucking around and still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name was Kiara, the one that the Goatman had touched. I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she says she wants to go home and she doesn't want to be out alone in the woods for another night. So we decide to split up. The 4 of us that want to go can go, but I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin, and it's my uncle's, and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point because I think people aren't taking this shit seriously, and I definitely don't want to be out in the woods for another night. I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, now 4 girls and 4 guys, to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to go get a rifle and says he's going to be back, so there are just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m., he hasn't made it back yet, and we're getting extremely antsy. The only reason I stopped begging them to leave was because Tanner went to get a gun. At around 5:30 or so, the one cousin that did stay says that the girl Kiara is outside. We all look outside, and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so fucking scared, why would she come back? And I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind, this whole time, the coppery smell has been gone, but now I realize I can smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them, everybody, and these are the people who wanted to stay in the woods after we had the goddamn Goatman in our midst, is laughing at me and asking if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like I'm not fucking bullshitting you right now. I ask them why would I play like that? So one of the girls goes outside to get Kiara. She gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kiara starts heaving. I don't know how to describe it, sort of like if someone with their back turned was laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realize there was not a fucking sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This was late September, so it was still fairly hot at the time, but super chilly on some days, and you could usually hear big-ass geese honking or some kind of birds or squirrels chattering. I step out the door and I tell the girl to come back in the fucking trailer right now. She backs into it, and we lock the fucking door. We pull all the shades except one, and put a guy there to watch Kiara. She stands there for another 20 minutes or so. Eventually, the guy turns to say she's still there. And there's a huge fucking bang on the door. We all jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room of the trailer. The banging is super fucking loud. My cousin is holding one of the girls, the other 2 are kind of giggling with nervous laughter. And me and the other 2 guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan, he's screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop fucking playing!" We go over to the door and open it. He stumbles in with a rifle. There's nobody else outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest, but he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said it wasn't Kiara standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned toward him with a slack-jawed look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. It wasn't until almost halfway to the trailer that he realized she was getting closer to him. She had started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said he just ran the way back to the cabin, thinking it would be open. When he got to the door and it was locked, he turned, and it was about half the distance to the door. He looks around the room and gets super pale. He pulls me to the side and whispers in my ear, "You know there are only 7 of us in here, right?" I get that feeling when your stomach drops to your nuts. It had been back here inside the trailer while we were sorting out who was going where, and when we all walked outside to talk earlier in the day, it had just slipped back in. We look out the window and there's nobody there, so we recount, and I go over and ask everyone how many people were here earlier, and everyone says 8, and I say, well, how many are here now? They all do the count and realize there are only 7 of us here now. Tan had brought back a couple boxes of ammo and his rifle. He told his dad there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think he would believe him if he said it was the Goatman. He said his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours and that in the morning we can all go back to his place and his cousin will drive us home. Now I'm really fucking terrified, but at least I feel better because we can be American and shoot the fuck out of whatever it is if it comes back. But my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks I'm trying to be funny and prank them. She's getting really scared and thinks this isn't funny. He keeps telling her I'm not that kind of person, and she says, well, how do we know the girl wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if it's really the Goatman, how do we know this is the real Tanner and that Goatman didn't just kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun? So we get into a huge argument about this, where me and Tan are like, we could seriously be in danger because at the very least, someone has been sneaking themselves into our trailer without us knowing and mingling with us, and at the worst, something very bad is in the forest with us. One of the girls is crying and saying she wants to go right now, and we're telling her she shouldn't because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down, and it's getting a little cloudy out. We eat something and turn on the radio for a while, but we can't really get a station out there with anything decent, so we turn it off at about the time Tan's cousin shows up. He was like 19, I think. Now the sun is just barely over the horizon, and he has one of those heavy-duty lantern flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer and whispers to Tan, asking if he's sure that's his cousin. Oh, we whisper to Tan, asking if he's sure that's his cousin. He says, yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp and walks in. He kind of glances at all of us and looks confused. Then he says, where's your little buddy at? I figured she would meet me at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something? He also asked whether we had been cooking blood in the cabin because it smelled like blood all the way up the trail. We are all like, nope. We ask him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He had come down the same trail Tan had been using and found one of you guys' buddies standing in the middle of the trail looking at him slack-jawed. He asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was look at him. Then she smiled, and he said he kept walking. She couldn't seem to keep up with him and kept lagging a little behind. He asked her if she was hurt or something and if she needed any help. But she just continued to stare. Eventually, he turned around a bend in the trail, but when he went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He assumed she'd taken some sort of shortcut through the woods to our trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's been going on. I half expected him to say we were full of shit, but he just listens and sits down in one of the couches in the living room. Tanner's cousin gets back to the girl. He says that when she kept trying to lag behind him, it kind of weirded him out, so he tried to keep her in front of him. But no matter how slow he walked, she always lagged a little behind. He smelled this nasty smell, and it got stronger as he got up to camp. Eventually, it got really strong. She said something really low he didn't catch, and when he turned around, she'd been right the fuck up on him. He stepped away from her. It was at this point he asked her if she was okay. If she wasn't, he offered to carry her back the rest of the way. She just kept staring. He said he reached out for her, as if to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged the distance, because she was off to the side of where he had put his hand, like she had moved while he was looking dead at her. So at this point, we all know this shit's real, unless Tan is playing a joke. Which we can tell he's not because he's almost pissing his pants. They load up their rifles, we eat some more, and we just kind of sit around until about 11. To this day, every time I think about this, I really pray to God it's some huge prank my cousins played on me and never revealed so I would shit myself for the rest of my life. At around 11, the stink of copper turned into an actual gross blood-like smell, like cooked blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin Reese get the fuck up instantly and grab the rifles. There's a sort of half knocking, half clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's this voice. It sounds like when you see those YouTube cats and dogs whose owners teach them how to talk. It says in this halting, weirdly toned voice, "Let me the fuck in! Stop fucking playing!" It made my nuts creep up against my body, and one of the girls just starts crying and calling for Jesus. It was so obviously not a person talking. It didn't have the right cadence. All people have a certain cadence when they talk, no matter what language. All people have a certain kind of rhythm. This shit didn't have any cadence or rhythm. You can't imagine how fucked up the whole situation was. So now I'm in full-on terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who is it? Stop fucking around, man!" And it just keeps saying, "In!" Or, "Let me the fuck in!" For almost 15 minutes. Then the smell goes away for a while. And for the next hour or so, you can hear someone basically creeping around the woods. Every couple of minutes, it comes back to the door and says something. Finally, the smell fades around 2 in the morning. Reese says, "Man, fuck this!" and walks outside with his rifle. He fires a shot into the air and says something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away!" He fires 2 more times. And then from the woods, right up against the river from the trailer, it sounds like something is slowly gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming. And it almost sounds like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. We can hear the brush over that way start to shake. Reese fires over into the tree line and starts backing up into the building. We lock the door, and we can hear this keening and screaming. Reese said something had come out of the bushes, super low to the ground, and was crawling toward the cabin. He had shot at it. Pretty much, that was how the rest of the night went. Constant screaming for the next 2 hours, and something moving out in the tree line. But it never came back up into the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting in the chair watching the door with his rifle. No one else heard or saw this, and he told me 2 days later, after the whole thing was over. He said it had been nodding off after all the screaming noises finally stopped. He'd almost been asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and lay down in the middle of the floor and go to sleep. He assumed it was one of us and that the guy had nodded off. And he said he kind of realized something was wrong, and while pretending to be sleeping, counted us. There were 9 people in the cabin. He didn't want to try to shoot at the fucking thing and have it kill us all there, or have Reese wake up and start shooting and us kill ourselves. So he just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. Sometimes it would stand up and do this weird jittery thing, or heave like it was laughing. But then it would lay back down. My story closes pretty weak, because from my perspective, nothing happened. When we woke up, I noticed that Tan was a little jittery and he was avoiding looking at us. But we ate some breakfast, packed up, and started walking back to his house. He stayed last in the cabin and said he'd lock up and bring me my uncle's keys. He told us to just start walking and that he'd catch up, which I really didn't want to fucking do. We got a little bit up the path, and when he came running up, we just jogged back to his house. His cousins took us home. There was a window in the camper bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up and looked in there. We were too stupid to lock a screenless window, and it was fucking up when he went in there. I'm guessing that the Goatman had been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or slip up and getting in among us. It walked with us all the goddamn way back to his house, and then he said it lagged to the back of the group and looked him dead in the eyes before wandering back into the woods. Ah! That's the Goatman, baby! I think that went pretty okay, all things considered. I've got a lot of sound effects, and I was like, oh god, oh geez, oh god, trying to find all the ones I need. I wish I had a soundboard, it would have been a lot easier. You liked it? Really? Thank you. Oh, thank you, Misery Writes, and also welcome. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I'd like to do this more, I think. Well, I'm gonna do it every week this month. I'm gonna switch to just chatting. Oh, I've got Shoost on. Just gonna close Shoost. Hope it doesn't freak my shit out. Okay. Oh, I feel like I'm so bright now. Without that filter on. Thank you! Thank you, Misery. That's very sweet of you to say. That's actually what, made me want to tell a story. Because somebody had told me that I have a good storytelling voice. And that's very nice. Oh, I didn't even notice because I don't have alerts on that screen, but thank you for the follow, Jordan250. Yeah, that was great. I think that went really well. I might play a little bit more, Who's Lila? After I take the ad break here in a sec. Would you guys be interested in that? Yeah? Really? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I just want to... Can you just close this app, please? Just close it. Just close it. Thank you. Gee whiz. Or I could play some Hypnospace Outlaw. Yeah. Let's see. If I make a poll... How in the fuck do I do this again? I don't remember. I don't remember how to do a poll. Here we go. Okay. What should I play? Hypnospace, Outlaw. Who's Lila? Something else. Okay. Then we'll have it set for 5 minutes. And then I'll step away, play some ads. And then when I come back, I guess we'll find out what I should play. So hang around for a few minutes. I'll play some ads. And yeah. So don't go anywhere, okay? Go get a nice little treat or something.